All right, Eagles Syndicate, Eagles family, Eagles Nation, whatever you want to call yourselves, welcome back into the channel. And as you could tell by this unofficial depth chart next to me, today we are going to be giving my reaction to this. It came out yesterday. Your boy was working. Hey, if you want more instant reactions, make this the main thing. Because you know, like Jalen Hurts said, we got to keep the main thing the main thing. And right now, the main thing is not Eagle Syndicate in terms of paying the bills, but one day we can get there with your guys' support. Nonetheless, that's not why you clicked on the video. Welcome in if you're brand new and you love the Eagles. Check out the channel, tons of good stuff. But let us talk about the unofficial Eagles depth chart because I'll say it, guys, it's not really that informative. Overall, right? I think there are some good takeaways, but there's a lot of, yeah, thank you for, obviously Jalen Hurts, quarterback one, A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, the starting wide receivers, and some of the camp battles, especially on the defensive side. It's like, okay, thanks for letting us know some battles that we already knew were battles, but you're not telling us who's ahead. And that's just kind of how these depth charts have seemingly worked in the modern day NFL. I know the picture isn't exactly as clear as it could be. I did the best I could. The writing is really small. So, I think you guys can tell who is who. At least I can right now in OBS. The main things of obviously, that we knew. Obviously, we have Jalen Hurts, quarterback one, Saquon Barkley, running back one. I think it's interesting to note that Kenneth Gainwell is still the running back two right now, firmly over over Will Shipley. I was reading Britton Covey's name there, and over Will Shipley. And I had made a video a couple days back talking about how I thought that Shipley could be potentially taking the lead for that RB2 spot. It does not look like that is the case per this depth chart, which I don't completely mind. I'm not a huge Gainwell guy, but listen, he's a better blocker than Shipley, and maybe that's what it's coming down to at this point. He's had some good plays as well throughout training camp. A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith, we knew that was your 1 and 2. Paris Campbell seems to be firmly ahead of Johnny Wilson in terms of wide receiver 3. This makes sense to me. Sirianni has got some, history alongside Paris Campbell, from his time in Indianapolis. Johnny Wilson, though, looks like he will be the wide receiver 4, and then John Ross as the 5 on this roster. I really wish that the team would bring in, whether it be a vet like a Hunter Renfrow or on a smaller deal, just to have some true depth there, because you could see with the Paris Campbell groin injury, Johnny Wilson's getting some run, John Ross, but it is not exactly a deep wide receiver core, and the Eagles do have $25 million in cap space. I wish that they would bring in a veteran wide receiver, like a Hunter Renfrow, maybe Jarvis Landry. I see he's getting some work, but I definitely prefer Renfrow for this offense and the slot role. But nonetheless, that is what it is. Dallas Goedert is the tight end 1. Grant Alcantara is the tight end 2. Saw some headway of that. That checks out. The offensive line, Tyler Steen right now being the right guard over Mekhi Becton. I think this is the right call from what I've heard. Mekhi Becton, listen, the physical tools, we all know that they're there, right? That's why the Jets drafted him so high. But in terms of actual production on the field, he's left some to be desired. I liked Philly taking a shot on the guy, but if he's not the guy, he's not the guy. It's cool. The rest of the offensive line, self-explanatory: Lane, Jurgens, Dickerson, and Mailata. To be fair, the offense, we kind of knew what it was going into training camp. We had a really good idea of what it was going to look like. It was the defense that I had the most questions regarding. I think it is a good sign what we see here. The defensive line, pretty much what I thought it would be: Bryce Huff, Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, Josh Sweat, with Milton Williams being the first guy in, as well as Brandon Graham. This defensive line, and Nolan Smith, they're 6-7 deep. I really like what the Eagles have on the defensive line. Being a starter certainly matters, but everybody gets PT throughout the day. At least that's how it used to be. We'll see how it is with the Vic Fangio defense, but I expect he continues to shuffle out this defensive line for Philadelphia. They're a very, very solid group. Let's talk about some of these defensive battles that I'm most interested in. The linebacker battles. Devin White and Nakobe Dean and Zach Bond and Jeremiah Trotter. They're not telling us much. And I've heard some really good things about Bond and JTJ out of camp. Nakobe Dean, the past 3 or 4 days, I keep seeing he is getting to the quarterback. He is getting sacks. So as a pass rusher, look for Nakobe Dean to potentially be out there on linebacker blitz plays early on in the season. It seems like that's what he's been successful in thus far in camp. Devin White, to me, is going to be clear cut one of the two starting linebackers for this team. They paid him that money for the reason. He is a vet, and we'll talk about this in the secondary, but I do see Vic Fangio giving a little bit of preferential treatment to veterans early on, guys that he trusts, guys that he know that can do it, and I don't blame him for that in the slightest. I do think that going with a true leader, especially at the linebacker position in Devin White, is a good call. You know, that is the guy that is out there operating your defense, especially because Fangio isn't a defensive coordinator that's on the sidelines. Fangio's up in the box, so you need leaders, strong leaders on your defensive. Brandon Graham still being there, very huge. Slay out there for that secondary. Devin White could be that for this linebacker group of young guys, and Dean and JTJ and even Bond to an extent. Don't be shocked if Zach Bond wins this job. I've heard good things about him. I know what I said about Nakobe Dean and JTJ, and I've heard positive reports. Again, that is training camp, but if I had to guess, I think Devin White and Zach Bond is the first linebacker duo you see out there, but I do think we see Nakobe Dean out there as well. I think it's those three. I think JTJ, maybe an injury would have to happen for him to get substantial playing time, but I think that three tandem mix there with Devin White staying out there and Bond and Dean kind of back and forth depending on the situation in the game could be what we see there. In the secondary, Darius Slay, we know he's out there, right? Easy to see that. Avonta Maddox in at nickel, Isaiah Rodgers, Kelly Ringo, and then Quayon Mitchell as a backup. I think that is purely one of those rookies got to earn it on the depth chart things, and maybe that's what's going on with Will Shipley too. Quinyon Mitchell, you spend that first round pick on him. I've heard nothing but good things out of this guy from camp. I would be floored if he was not out there a substantial amount early on in the season. I said that I thought Maddox would be on the bench, and I thought that Rodgers would be the outside corner and Quinyon would be in the slot. That is what we have seen out of the Eagles camp in terms of who's getting first team reps the past few days. The unofficial depth chart here, I think it is just a bias to vets. Fangio showing some love to the vet and Maddox there, and Rodgers and Ringo equal time on this team, just splitting it down the middle for those guys. But I do think ultimately Slay, Rodgers, and Quinyon is your three cornerback tandem, and then to close it out, the safety CJ Gardner-Johnson and Reed Blankenship. That is exactly what I thought it would be in terms of safeties here. Ultimately, this depth chart, does it tell us a lot? Not really, but it's nice to see on paper what this team looks like. It gets us excited, gets the juices flowing for the 2024 season. And I'm ready to see some preseason action. We got that later this week. I'll, of course, be back up on the channel giving you guys my thoughts on what we saw. I'd like to see, Shipley out there, maybe Quinyon Mitchell, JTJ. I'm really going to be focusing on that defense. I don't think we see a lot of the offensive starters, maybe for a set, just because it's a new offensive coordinator, new system, and they want to see how it goes. But the defense is really going to be where my focus is for preseason week 1. Let me know if you guys are ready for that down in the comment section, and give me your thoughts on this unofficial, official, whatever you want to call it, first depth chart that came out. I will catch you guys next time. Peace. Go Birds.